Texas Rock Nation, pledge your allegiance.
We gon' run this town.
Hello.
Hello,
Hey, how you doing, buddy?
man. I'm doing okay. Feeling a little chilly down here for the first time in Texas. Nothing like you guys
Yeah.
probably got out there.
Oh yeah. It's pretty horrible here, to be honest with you. Let's see here. So we'll start off. We'll say hello to a few people who are here. Uh Looks like Jesse Roth is here. Barbara Buffalo. Heather, hello, how are you? Let's see, Kathy. How are you, Kathy? Dawn's here. Let's see, Mean Green is here.
Mean green.
Let's see. Yeah. All right, so we'll get to start the show started here, and we will, I guess, start off. We'll let you introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from, where you grew up, stuff like that.
All righty. Well known local. Thank you for having me, Phillip Anthony Sainz Hall here, aka Little Anthony. If some of you may be familiar with the name, I've been floating around the social media area, deciding what to do with this platform in my journey. It's called From the Bullet to the Bible, a Gangster's Tale, which I'm an author of, and it's roundabout, a tale of he gives a glimpse into my life from street life as a child, growing up, getting involved in organized crime, facing all those issues, and facing death quite a few times, and it ends with some people like it, some people don't, but it ends with a come to Jesus moment there.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty nice. So what I found interesting about your story is that you turned your life around, you turned your story around, and you decided to go the way of faith, and you didn't have to rat on anybody to do it.
No, absolutely not, man. I took my medicine, and that was something instilled into me as I was a kid. And a lot of guys out there who can relate to this, people, men, women, girls alike. When you grow up rough, and let me back up and say, every city has its inner city. I don't care, big, small. I'm from Denver, Colorado. A lot of people say Denver, man. There was no organized crime in Denver. It might have been a lot of horse and cattle rustling, maybe, but no. Even Denver has its inner city, man. And I hit the streets due to the chaos in my home when I was about the age of 8, man. I was running with the warlords, and I want to throw this out there real quick. I'm speaking to the men, big brothers, little brothers. Men, we should be the leaders in our home. And there's an old country song that says, "Looking for love in all the wrong places." And I'll tell you right now, if you do not have love in your house, hear me now. If you don't have love in your home, you will go find it. My parents, I mean, they had 6 kids to raise. I'm the oldest of 6. Pops had to come back from Vietnam in the late 60s. And I came along, and salute to all of our veterans out there and first responders. Thank God for those who've had to go to war and experience horrible things. But he went to Vietnam, and he came back, and and he came back with some junk, and he didn't really have a place to put it. And for lack of better things, he took it out on the family. So when things were out of hand, and he had a little too much to drink, um, we would split, man. We'd get out of the house before it got too late, and we'd run to our friend's house, and out there where I was at in the neighborhood I grew up, was West Denver. There was a street gang called the Warlords in my neighborhood, and a lot of the older guys and stuff, I used to admire them. Not to mention, I grew up around a lot of bikers. On my mother's side, my uncle, he ran with the Hells Angels and was an associate to them, and they were always partying at the house. And I don't know if anybody could remember back like that far, but in the 70s and 80s, man, backyard bands, garage bands were real prevalent. And there was a lot of biker guys around me when I grew up. There wasn't a whole lot of talk of school. I went, but there was a lot of those type of influences, people I looked up to. I wanted to someday be the leader of my own crew, have my own guys together. And we did a lot of thieving when we were little, man, from 8 to 13. If it wasn't tied down in your yard, we probably took it. And some of the gangsters we were working with, we would get all that stuff together, and they would hit something called a flea market, a swap meet, and you'd probably buy your own tools and equipment back from us if we hit your neighborhood. But, it was a lot of stuff like that. I got a lot of criminal mischief, and I didn't know nothing of the mafia or anything like that. And but there was a rock in my family, and I believe everybody has that rock, that one person in the family that keeps it all together. And that person was my grandmother. Man, she was a soldier of soldiers. She, on my dad's side, he had 6 kids, and there were 6 kids in his family, and on my mother's side, there were 6 kids in her family, and both sides were tied up in street, related stuff from a lot of biker gangs, a lot of biker stuff. And like I said, I was really young, but it was a big influence to me. But my grandmother, now she's the one who kept it together. We didn't have a lot of church or Jesus in our life, but I did go on Sunday, and it was my grandmother who influenced that. If she wasn't there, I don't care what gang you were a part of or how tough you thought you were come Sunday, you better be ready to go to church because Mama's coming to get you. And that's kind of, was my rock. She was the one you could go to for anything. And man, she was always praying. And I never really understood that. But me and my brothers used to, watch her when she was doing the dishes in the kitchen or something. And she would just be talking to Jesus and looking up in the sky and talking all the time. And we were just like, oh, poor Mama. Sometimes she's losing it. But, that was the rock in my family as a youngster.
Yeah, definitely. So you ended up gangs and stuff like that, street gangs.
Yeah, it was street gangs. And then when you grow up in a low income, I'm going to just say, for lack of better words, in low income housing, like I said, we didn't have a lot. And but there was a lot of love between my brothers and sisters. We shared everything. And when you went out to play, there were gangs. Like I said, there was the Warlords in our group. I won't mention some of the other street gangs. Some of that stuff's still prevalent back there. And those are who we turn to when you're young, your friends. And if that's in your neighborhood, yeah. And I wanted to become part of the Warlords because they were the tough guys in our area. And well, if you grow up in that neighborhood, you're kind of born into it. Some of you out there will know what I'm talking about. When you're born in that neighborhood, whatever's around, you're going to adapt to and become part of, and you're just kind of accepted, and it's kind of expected of you, to become part of this crew. I was about 13 years old, and I got jumped in, and I had a task to do and go out, and they found a big bouncer in front of a bar for me to jump on him, and I had to be brave no matter what. And I went and I jumped this guy, and then everybody ran in, and I was real bullheaded, when I was young, and I wasn't really afraid to try nothing, and that was okay with me. And got my head kicked in a little bit, but the crew was there, backed me up. I got my bravery sign, and I got the okay to run with the guys. And I was about 13, but from 8 to 13, we was always hanging with them anyway. We would play football on the street, stickball, things like that. And like I said, though, we did a lot of stealing. I used to collect. I used to like football cards. I don't know if anybody remembers the old football cards and baseball cards and things. And I just didn't like paying for them. So my buddies had this little thing. We would get on our bicycles, and there were little strip malls around, and we would hit certain parts of sometimes out of our neighborhood and hit certain stores. And we would take turns. My buddies would go up and talk to the clerks and distract them. And one of us would be stuffing football cards or whatever, in our socks and stuff and in our pockets. And then we'd run out of there. And it just happened to be one particular time. I wasn't too good at reading, but we went and hit this one store in our neighborhood. And just to set the scene for you, the store was named Giovanni's Restaurant, the strip mall. It had Giovanni's Restaurant. It had Giovanni's Hardware Store, Giovanni's Bakery, Giovanni's Liquor Store. You kind of get where I'm going with this. Somebody named Giovanni owned this place. Well, we took our bicycles, man, and we went up into the store and did our regular routine. And this time it was my turn to just, steal what I could steal. So the guys are talking, distracting people, and I'm shoveling stuff into my shorts and my pants and stuff. And I hear this big voice. It says, hey boy, what are you doing? And I look up, man, and there's this monster of a guy, big guy. And well, you got to admit, I'm probably 12 years old then, and I'm like, whoa, And he goes, are you stealing from me? And I get up, oh man, hey guys, we've been made. Let's get out of here, man. And he comes barreling after us. We run out of the store, jump on our bicycles. And as I'm heading out the parking lot, man, this guy, he was big, really. He was like 400 and some change, monster of a guy. And he comes running to the edge of the sidewalk, and he's huffing and puffing, and he's breathing real hard. And I remember stopping on my bicycle, looking back, and I hollered out, you'll never catch me, you fat bastard. And then we started laughing, and we bolted off. And that was that. And it was about a year later, just to tell you the mentality of certain ways of the guys that I had just messed with. About a year later, I happened to switch schools now, started going to a high school. And we moved to closer up to out of the Denver area to Lakewood, where this place was a community. And it just happened to be that this little strip mall that I had hit a year ago, and I had done so many things that it didn't even hit my brain that we did rob this place, and I probably shouldn't go back by there. But my school was on the other side of this location. So I one day I had to walk home, and usually some of the warlords would come pick us up right after school or at school, man, and we'd head out and do whatever. And I had to walk home this one particular time. So I come through that strip mall, and it's Giovanni's Bakery and Giovanni's, restaurant and liquor store and hardware store. And I'm just walking along in front of the stores, and it's a nice day out. And I get to the bakery part, and I'm looking because there's a lot of eye candy inside that behind that glass, man. I'm looking at all the pastries, and wow, that looks good. And I keep walking, and as I get past the restaurant, bam, man, somebody grabs me and about yanks me out of my shoes. And I go through these doors, and I can see these tables flying by me. And I get rushed way into this back room in my head, and I get slammed up against the wall, man. My head hits the wall, and this guy's slapping me. And he grabbed me in the front of my shirt, and he points in my face, and he goes, and I think I had a bloody nose by then, and he goes, I'll never catch you, you fat bastard. That's what you told me. Whoa. Man, it was like a year ago, And I'm looking at this guy and I go, oh, man, oh no, man, don't call the cops. You're going to call the cops on me? And he laughs and he goes, you think the cops are going to pay me back for all the things that you stole from me? No. Now, here's what you're going to do, you little punk. You're going to go home. You're going to tell your father what you did. And you're going to show back up here with a black pair of pants, black shoes, and a white shirt. And you're going to come to work for me. And you're going to pay me every penny back. You understand me? And he slapped me around. So get out of here, man. Here's a little tough gang guy running, man. I tore out that restaurant, hit the street. I went home. I never told my father what I did. I took the long way around next time. But it happened to be, a couple days later, and I thought I'm in the clear. And I happened to be doing something with the guys. I came home. I was probably drinking, because a lot of things I had done started at 8, man. I was drinking when I was 8. I learned how to drive when I was 8. I used to drive my grandfather to the liquor store. So here I am about 12 years old, 12, 13, and I'm probably drinking. And I come in one night, and I'm trying to get quiet to the house and get into my room. I'll turn on my light in my bedroom, man, and I'm looking on the bed, and there's a white pair of pants. There's a black pair of pants, a white shirt, and some black shoes. Whoa, my dad comes in, smacks me upside the head. Boy, I don't know what you did, but I know who you did it to. You will be at work tomorrow. And I went to work for John Giovanni.
Wow. Yeah, so this guy remembered you. He did not forget. He caught you.
Oh, yeah. He because kind of gives you the mentality. And granted, I didn't know what Mafia was. But I started working in his restaurant, and John, he adopted me. My name is Phillip Anthony Sainz. The Hall came later, thanks to my stepfather, and he's the one who started calling me Anthony. He never called me by my first name, but he called me Little Anthony, and that kind of followed me through my life.
Yeah, I gotcha. And so you start working for him in this restaurant, and
Yeah, I'm working.
what goes on from there?
I believe it was $1 something an hour, and he would keep all my tips. And John was a real unique guy, man. He was very slow moving, big, and I think he was a little over 6'2", 6'3", and his wife was named Jeannie, and she was probably about 4 feet tall and red hair, and whoo, she was on fire. She always yelling. I thought they were always fighting, but I guess that's the way they communicated. But he didn't at first talk too much with me. He was very direct, and this is what you do, and do this, and you better not mess up. And it was a busy restaurant called Giovanni's, and they were from Old Country. And the one thing I can say, though, if you guys have kids out there or anything like that, youngins or even yourself, you can never go wrong by working in an Italian restaurant. Woo! I put on the weight, and cooking was good. And the one thing about Jeannie, I don't know to this day, and my father was and still is, an ornery, tough man, and nothing scared him. But whoever John was, this figure in the neighborhood, obviously scared my father, because he made darn sure I didn't miss nothing, and I was there on time and whatever I needed to get there. But John knew a lot about our family. We didn't have much. And, the one thing, Jeannie was always, even though I had stole from this guy, he always made sure I had a pile of food and bread, to take home every night I worked to my brothers and sisters. And throughout my time with him there, I learned a whole bunch, man, and how he conducted himself. I gained real quick some knowledge on who Big John was. Granted, you got to remember, now back up. There was a rock in my family. There was my grandmother. And at age 8, she was begging me. She saw us all going to the street. She saw where we were headed. And she wanted so much for us to do well. Her kids and my uncles, most of them, they're dead now. And they just lived hard lives, and it was hard on her. My grandfather, well, he was John Wayne in my eyes. And he wore some overalls and a cat hat and smoked, rolled his own Camel cigarettes. And, he was a tough guy. But she always, kept that prayer. And prayer is it's what my book's about, man. It's what my story is about. It's about the power of prayer at the end of the day. And back to 8 years old, she gave me this verse, and it says, Matthew 5, verse 8, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Okay. I didn't know what that meant. I just know if I didn't say it every night before I went to bed, my grandma would probably find out and she'd beat the crap out of me. So I just carried that verse with me. So here I am later on working with John, and I'm already getting into the street gangs, and I'm running with these guys, and I've already got a juvenile record. And I watched John in his life, whoever this guy was, everybody wanted to know him. And he had a table, built the scene, set the scene for it. See, in his restaurant, we had Giovanni's restaurant in the middle of the strip mall. And he had a particular table that he sat at. Nobody sat at John's table. Nobody. He'd have his newspaper out there, and he was smoking cigarettes, and he'd drink a lot of coffee. And then he had a couple of guys that would come meet with him, and they could come at any time. And man, they were dressed real nice. I mean, they were sharp looking dressed guys. And they never talked to me or anybody in the restaurant. And they would come just before opening, and they would leave. They never hung out, never had dinner, anything like that. And they would never sit at John's table. And that was one thing I did catch. Nobody sat at Big John's table. They would come in and sit. One guy would sit across from him, and the other guy sit with Jason on another table. Both had angles to him, and both had angles to the door. And I never knew what they were talking about. They'd have their meetings, and they would leave. Well, where I was in the restaurant was in the very, very back. And I was a busboy. So I got the bread warmer. I'm in charge of the bread. I got glasses. I got to fill water glasses, and I got drinks and stuff I got to supply to tables. So I'm getting my station ready back there, and to back up. In the back now where I'm at, I could take a right and I could go down the hallway through the kitchen, and it would take me into like the hardware store, his next building down there. Each and there's a hallway back there. Each building or area connected itself in the back area. And if I went to my left, it would go through the bar and go into the bakery and so on down to the next set of stores. And then right behind me, there was a door, and that went into the alley where the dumpsters were and everything. And then there was a door just corner, like I thought was a closet. And one day, I'm asking John. He came in the back, and I said, Mr. G, I noticed something here. And he says, what you notice, Anthony? And I said, well, I noticed I know where that door goes, and I know where that door goes, and I know where that door goes, and nobody ever uses this door here, and you don't get mopped. So what's behind this door? And he looks at the door, he looks at me, and he looks back at the door, and he goes, what door? I said, this door right here, the door handle right here. And he looks again, and he looks at it back, and he says, I don't see no door. I said, oh, okay. That's the door we don't talk about, I guess the door we don't go through. So these guys, later on when I'm working, I had built a rapport with John. It took him a long time, almost about a year, before he would even talk to me without telling me something to do. And if I can build his character up a little bit here and tell you how he moved. And this tells me the mentality of what I was about to get into in my life. But John could ask me, he couldn't complete a sentence with me completely. Like John would ask me one day, he says, hey, Anthony, you have any brothers and sisters? And he knew I did. And I said, yes, sir. How many brothers you got? And I said, I got 3 brothers. Their names are, and then he'd walk away. And the next day he'd come back, Anthony. Yes, sir. What's your brother's names? I just told you yesterday. I didn't say that out loud, but okay, yeah, their names are banned. I'd give them their names. And he'd walk away. And then he'd come back the next day and say, Anthony, you got any sisters? Man, so it was like a month to have a conversation with this guy. but he'd ask one thing at a time, get his answer, and leave. And I don't know why he did it. Other than that, I started to see how he could remember me a year ago and the people that did him wrong. And one particular time, uh, I'm sitting in the back, and this tells you another area of where John was, and it also tells you how Satan can get into your life and how the bad things can work. Because just because you think something's safe and something's okay doesn't mean it is. And I was working in the back one day, and Big John comes back and he says, "Hey, Anthony, come here a minute." And I come over and say, "Yes, sir." And he said, "So tell me, how you doing in school?" And I was like, "Whoa." Nobody's ever asked me that question before. And I was like, "Yeah, I guess I'm doing good, John. I'm doing good, man. I go." And he's like, "Yeah, yeah." And man, he leaned over and boom, he slapped me across the face again on my nose and stuff. And I said, "John, what's up?" And he goes, "I told you never lie to me." And he had my report card, man. He said, "You're failing math, you're failing science." And he went down this list. And it didn't bother me that he knew I was failing. It didn't bother me that he slapped me across the face. I get slapped all the time by my pops and at home. That's nothing. What touched me, I'm going to say touched me, is this guy, out of all the people I knew, actually cared about me, about my grades. I mean, who's this guy? He sends me food. He sends food home with me. And after that, we started to have some real good talks, and he would push me to do well with studies. And I started to, really admire this guy. Not to mention, everybody wants to know John. I saw the mayor of the city come in and sit with him. I saw police officers on a number of times come in, like they were reporting in on him. I saw a lot of people come in and they were asking things for him. It's like, this guy's like president of this neighborhood. I just didn't quite figure it out or didn't get it. So one time, I'm sitting in the back and getting my stuff ready, and these two guys come in that used to come visit and report to John on a regular basis. They come in and they have a guest with them, and it's the first time I've ever seen anybody sit at John's table. This guy comes in. I've never seen him before, little guy, and he's talking to John, and I can't hear what they're saying. But as he talks to John, I noticed John talks to the guys around him. He never talked directly to the guy. It was like they had to get permission to talk to John through him. And I'm just watching this, and in a strange way, I thought, that's kind of cool. You got to talk to John like that. But they were having a pretty serious conversation. And so it looks like they finish up, and John didn't look too happy. And then instead of going out the front doors, they turn around, they start coming back toward my bus station where I'm at. And I'm like, "Oh man," so I just, I'm getting busy and pay attention. They come back there. The first guy comes in, and then the guy that they brought in as this guest comes back through, and they open that door that don't exist. That's the first time I've ever seen that door used. And the second guy, he stops it and he looks at me and he says, "Anthony, it's the first time he's ever spoke to me." Okay. Now, I've been around some pistols growing up on the streets, but back in that day, everything was done like this, man. There was no drive-bys and shootings and things like that, but I was familiar with guns. Well, this guy pulls out, it's a 38 revolver. He pulls out a revolver and he says, "If that guy that we just brought in and took down through that door comes back out through that door, can you put one between the eyes?" Whoa! Nobody's asked me that question either. I'm like, but I don't even know why to this day. I said, yeah, I can do that. I'm not going to tell these guys no. I can do that. And he took the gun and he put it on top of the bread warmer and he put a cloth over it. And they went into that door that didn't exist. And man, I'm looking at the gun, and I'm looking at the door and in the front, and I notice John's not there, and I'm like, oh, and I'm really nervous, you know. And I've seen a lot of things by now in this restaurant. There's a lot that I haven't touched on. I've seen what goes on, and you know, I got an idea something not really good's probably going on in that room. And then I look at the gun again, and I reached up and I grabbed it, man, and it gave me a sense of power. A feeling came over me. I wasn't afraid, and I was like, "Whoa, you know, this is kind of cool." And so I put it back up, and then bam, it hits me. Oh crap! What if that guy does come through that door? Oh no! Now I may have to do something. So it felt like, you know, an hour went by, but it was probably about, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes, but it seemed forever. And I just kept looking back, and then my heart's going 1,000 miles an hour. And then the door opens, and I'm like, ugh. And that guy walks through, and he shuts the door, and he comes over. He says, Anthony, can you drive? And I said, yeah, man, I've been driving since I was 8. You know, I go to my grandpa, and I take him literally. He goes, yeah, shut up. You see the keys laying over there? You know John's caddy up in front? I said, yes, sir. His keys are laying on the table. I want you to take those keys, go get in his car. I want you to drive around the back here, leave the car running, and pop the trunk. And then I want you to walk back around the front of the building, come back in here, and go back to work. Can you do that? Sure. Yes, yeah, I can do that. Man, he shoved $100 in my pocket. And that was a lot of money for me back then. That's the most I've ever made in 20 minutes. And I was like, whoa. And so I did it. I did everything he said to do. And I put the car back there, and I went back to work. I never saw that little guy again. The 2 guys that came in on a regular basis kind of disappeared for like a month. And then everything went back to normal. That situation was never talked about ever. And I think that was my first taste of the mafia.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you pulled away. You valeted the car for that guy leaving a rug.
I got a pretty good idea what happened back there.
Yeah.
Well, as time went on, what's that?
Sorry, we got about 83 viewers in here. I wanted to take the time while we do have a lot of people in here. If you wanted to tell everybody about the sponsor of this interview, give them a little bit of a heads up, and then what I'll do is I'll run a giveaway.
You bet.
For some of their product for free.
Hey, and thank you everybody for jumping on. Really, I just want to say that real quick. Thank you really appreciate the support out here.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely nice. I dropped your YouTube channel as well, the link to your YouTube channel in the chat, and a couple people subscribe to you, so you should see that.
Well, we've got Bomber Energy drink here. They're sponsoring me. I picked up a sponsor here, and as I've been rolling around, and you can get this at Bomber Energy drink, bomberenergyusa.com. I don't know if the link was sent on how we could do that. If you want to run that.
Yeah, 1 second. Something. Let's see here. I don't know what's going on. Okay, here we go. So let me do this. Yeah, if you want to hold that up and show them, I'll put you back on the.
Yeah, it's Bomber Energy. This particular one is blueberry, and they've got some dragon fruit, which comes in a green can now, and then we've got some sugar-free. And man, these guys, I'm not an energy drinker, but when I ran into these guys, I noticed there's no jitter, no shake, and I travel a lot, and it doesn't give me any. You know how you get this afterwards, you get the stomach feels kind of bad sometimes when you hit those and don't eat. None of this has any of that. It just keeps me awake, and I'm really impressed with it. It's a new drink, been out for about 2 years, and they've jumped on, and they really give a lot to first responders. They back up a lot of people in the community. They give to the community. So during this, year, we're going to be on a tour. I will be sharing my story and my book and documentary, From the Bullet to the Bible, A Gangster's Tale, which you can get through me. I'll have to figure out how that's out there. And then we have the book, From the Bullet to the Bible, A Gangster's Tale. Anyways, well, I'll be traveling. I've been drawn to a lot of youth detention centers, and I'm speaking at high schools and some churches along the way. And when we hit your community, so if you're out there and you want to reach out to me, you can send me an email at fromthebullettothebible@gmail.com. Just ask for Anthony. When we're out there and you let us, we come to your community, let us know, and we'll stock up your local first responders and put it in your name. So
there we go. All right. So this here is for a variety pack, like we talked about, of the Bomber energy drinks, and it's completely free of charge. So if you're interested in trying out their product, go ahead and put a pound sign and all capital Bomber in the chat, and it'll enter you to win the giveaway for this. So it'll be a 3-pack, a variety pack, so you guys can try a couple different flavors of them, give them a shot, see if you like them, type of deal. We'll run them. So we'll give some people a few minutes. I think it's a minute and 50 to join in there and check it out and see. And if you guys want to give them a try, stuff like that, we'll get back to your story. I just wanted to do that. Your story's so interesting to me. For one, I hear about a lot of East Coast Mafia, but I've always kind of been interested in the other city organized crime. But you don't hear a lot of stories about those families because they were so under wraps and stuff like that. So I find your story pretty interesting.
Yeah, there's not a lot of court recorded stuff or on a lot. And I know a lot of guys are out there. And back in the '90s was my run. And back in the '90s, there was, I believe, about 11 solid families across the country. Now, the 5 are the commission, the East Coast Commission, which they're the ones you hear about. I'll just go out there and say that they're just the ones you hear about.
Yeah.
I believe now there's 26 active families now, but it's a completely different way of life. It ain't like surveillance technology and even the types of crime. But we'll get into that stuff down the road.
Yeah. So I'm going to read through a couple questions. We got about 20 seconds before it's going to randomize, pick somebody. How old are you? The ladies in the chat want to know.
I am 55.
55. Okay.
55 years old. Yeah.
There you go. All right, here we go. It's going to pick us a winner.
All right.
So we'll do this drawing. Oh, Johnny Yarborough got in there last minute. Nice. And it's just going to randomize somebody from there. There we go. Kathy Fagan.
All right.
Kathy Fagan got that.
Congratulations, Miss Fagan.
Yeah, there you go. So you get to try their energy drinks. I know Kathy's a real hard worker, so I know she'll definitely put some use to those,
Awesome.
Let's see here. And do you want to get back to the story, or would you like to run we could run a giveaway for one of your autographed books or something like that? Get your book out there?
Yeah, we could do that. We could do that.
Okay.
It's a heavy story, and we talked earlier, and if you really want to get the basis and the gist of how some guys get caught up into that life, you hear a lot of the mob stuff and a lot of, man, and it's probably redundant, but, a lot of it's Hollywood hit, and there's so much to organized crime and how you're picked. I mean, it ain't like you fill out an application. I mean, you are picked, you are groomed. and it's organized crime. So there's a lot of guys I think that can relate to me out there who've been in similar situations, maybe not to that level, but man, crime is crime at the end of the day, and the punishments and the destructions, they're pretty much all the same. And heck, I've got 3 bullet holes in me, 3 different gunshot situations, about 7 stab wounds and a plate in my head. Family destructed, and we'll get into that. But I think it's important that we talk about the basis and how a person would even get involved in that kind of life. Where they start. So
Yeah.
I like that you're giving me the opportunity to talk about my childhood. There was some bullying going on. I had big glasses, at kindergarten, and my pops would say, "Man, you're never going to have any friends. You got to simplify, get them before they get you, and you better hit the first person you meet in kindergarten. You better knock them out because you got big glasses, and nobody's going to be your friend." So, man, I went to kindergarten ready to go to war. It wasn't a really good time to go to school. That carried
Yeah.
through my elementary days, and bullying, and I fought all the time. So there are things, and I think a lot of people can actually relate to stuff like that.
So here's the giveaway. This is for your book, and he's gonna sign it, autograph it for you, and we'll ship it to you. Give it away. And let's see here. I'll have to find your bullet to the Bible, right?
Yes, sir. From the Bullet to the Bible, A Gangster's Tale
Okay.
is the name of the book.
Yeah, let me pull this up on Amazon.
You can purchase it just about anywhere if you just type in Google From the Bullet to the Bible. But I'd love to get you one. And will I get that information from you?
Yeah, I'm gonna send it over.
Great.
Yeah, I'll send it over to you once they're gonna email. Oh, thank you, Barbara. You already got that link in there. I appreciate that. I was looking for it, and I was struggling a little bit to get the right code to send in. Yeah, and what I'll do is I'll email you over, or I'll text it over to you and let you know their address and stuff like that for the shipping.
Now the documentary is a separate deal, and I'll get you some information on that. That's about an hour and a half long, and it's a real in-depth documentary on the life.
Okay. Yeah, and you said you were doing something with Netflix or something like that, and
We're preparing 8 episodes with Tim Lowry, Hollywood director, producer Tim Lowry, and we are in pre-production. If all goes well, I'm saying my prayers. We're entertaining the feature film. Feature film is, I believe, called Just a Phase. Is the first one, Faze. It's an introduction to pre-life before From the Bullet to the Bible. So over the next 6 years, we've got some really interesting things that have come across my table. And man, I don't deserve any of this stuff that's happened in my life. I don't. This is all a God thing for me. I'm like everybody else out there, man. I got to pay bills. I lay concrete for a living. I have done concrete my whole life. My company's called Goodfellas Concrete. So
there we go.
It's what I do.
Yeah, so
But
Jesse Roth was the winner of your book here.
All right, Jesse.
So we got her. So Jesse won that, and then what we'll do is we'll get back to your story here. I just wanted to do a couple giveaways and mention our sponsor and stuff like that, and do that while we had a bunch of people in here, and that way everybody had a shot at taking some energy drinks home or some autographed book.
For sure.
Stuff like that. Yeah, so we'll get back to it. So the little guy leaves the restaurant in the rug to
he's
the
gone.
Cadillac.
So it was about sometime later. I think I'm about 14, 15 years old. And 16, close to 16. And John comes back one day, and we've developed a rapport, a friendship. And he comes back one day and he says, "Hey, Anthony, go get yourself some pasta and some gravy." That's where I learned we didn't call it spaghetti sauce. He called it gravy. So he said, get some gravy and load yourself up. And I said, all right. And I went and got my plate, and I come in the back. He goes, no, go sit at my table. And I looked at him and I said, go sit where? He said, go sit at my table. I'll be there in a minute. And I said, no, John, I'm not going to sit at your table, man. And he goes, what? What do you mean you're not sitting at my table? Go sit over there. I said, no. And he goes, why? And I said, because bad things happen to people who sit at your table, man. I'm not sitting at your table. And so he kind of made me go over there, and I was nervous as heck because bad things happen to people who sit at John's table. And I put my dish down my plate, and I'm waiting for him, and I'm nervous. And he comes out of the back room, and he has this big jar, man. It's full of coins and dollar bills, and he puts it on the table. And he says, what do you think of that? And I said, that looks like a lot of money there, John. Man, that's pretty cool, man. What's that for? And he goes, this is all the money you stole from me when you was a little punk. I figure this is we're even here. I said, yeah. He goes, I'm giving it back to you. What? Why? I'm giving it to you. That way I don't have to break your little legs or mess you up or do you ugly. I'm going to buy your health back for you. And that's something else I learned. I learned that in that life, if you hold a certain rank as a captain, a soldier, just being part of that life, you better demand respect, and you better strike fear into people, and you better listen and pay attention to what you do or what you're told to do. And if you ever wrong somebody from that group, depending on the family you work with, you ever wrong somebody, something will happen to you. And I stole from John, and whether I was 5 years old, 8 years old, 15, 45, or 70, it didn't matter. He had to get revenge. He had to make me pay, other than working there. And instead of breaking my little legs, which I'm sure he would have done, he said, I'm buying this. I'm buying your freedom. Now get out of here. You're fired. Get a real job. And I was like, what? And he said, I don't want the money. He said, take the money and get out of here. Go get a real job. Finish your school. And he just really jumped me, man. And I left that, and he used to be beat up on I was part of the Warlords, okay? And in my younger teens, I had a little jean jacket, sleeveless jean jacket, and it said Warlords, a patch on the back of it. And one time he said, what is that stupid thing you wear? I go, hey, John, man, what do you mean stupid thing? This is my coat, man. This is my patch, my people. He goes, what do you mean your people? This is my boys, man, my crew. Okay, what is it? Your boys, your crew? What do you mean? What is this for? I see them punks coming around riding in front of my restaurant. I don't like them on my place no more. You tell them they can stay away from here. And I said, whoa, hold up, man. They mean no harm, man. They're my good people. They're like looking out for me. He goes, looking out for what? For what? What do you got to be looked out for? See, I don't know how to explain that to John, but he just really picked on it. And on that day, when he gave me the money back, he said, here's something you better straighten out in your life. These punks you run around, they're street punks. You gotta decide one of two things. You want to be the street, or you want to own the street. You hear me? You want to be the street, you want to own the street. Run around Warlords, crew. You don't even know what that is. Go to school, man. Get a job. Do something with your life. I don't see those people around here anymore. You fired, man. Get out of here. I couldn't believe it. He fired me, man. Broke my heart. I loved coming to work for John, but he was right too. And I have to respect that he pushed me in to get a job. And it wasn't that he was, which I found later in life, wasn't hoping that I did well. He was seeing if I understood discipline. That's how calculated and how grounded real bosses are in this life. They do their research, their due diligence, handpick people to be part of their life. Years later, I would become part of this life, but I always remained in contact with John. He became my friend. I'm away from school. I got a real job. I went to work at a movie theater. long story short, you have to get the book for that, but I ended up robbing that blind. And I went back to school and I graduated because of my grandmother. And remember, The Rock, she was always praying for me. Please get out of the gangs. Please do better. Please put Jesus in your life. And, yeah, sure, Mama, sure. And when we were messing up and stuff in school, or messing up when we got home, or messing up at church, and she was born with like an embedded set of what I call brass knuckles, man. And they would find their way to my forehead every time I was screwing up. She was like quick to crump, thump, thump, and everybody knew her by that. Her name was Josephine, and we called her Joe Mama. And all the gangsters in town knew, everybody knew who my grandmother was. And she was on dialysis back when I was young. And when I came to drive, I had me a Mustang. I used to make sure she went and made her appointments. And if I wasn't around or locked up or something, all my brothers and my gangster friends would be over. They would shovel her walks, man. They always made sure that Joe Mama was okay. So when I was working for John, she would send little women from her church, and they would come and have lunch, and they'd leave little messages in scripture on napkins. And I didn't realize any of this until I wrote the book. And I'll get into that later on too. But if you ever want to really learn something about yourself and your history, man, put pen to paper. Take a piece of pen, take a pen and a piece of paper, get down and write that stuff down as far back as you can remember. And it's like this thing that I've learned and I found in a Christian story. It was called Footprints in the Sand. It's where this guy looks back at his past and he says, Lord, I see where you were with me in the times of my life, and I see two sets of footprints, man. You were walking right with me. But why at the worst times in my life, when I look back, I see one set of footprints? Why at the worst times did you leave me? And the Lord kind of laughs and he said, man, you silly man. Back when you see only one set of footprints, that's when I carried you. And it's like, whoa. So later on in my life now, I look back at these things, and that prayer that my mama used to say over me when I was 8 years old, she carried through her friends. Throughout my life, he put little people, little places, little areas, and little things of protection. But I never realized it till I had to reflect. And I got into some really dark stuff, but I left the restaurant. I did get a job for a little while. I moved out from Denver to Dallas, Texas. And I was working at a movie theater, and it wasn't working out for me. I was punching a clock, and, I had to report and answer to somebody. I had a problem with authority back then. And I would call home, and sometimes I'd have a few beers, or I'd call, and John would have some vino, and hey, John, what's going on, man? He would tell me what's going on at home and what they were doing, what venture was next, and how's work working out. Well, it's not working out too well, man. It's well, what's wrong with it? Well, I'm only making like $300 a week, man. And, I gotta be on time. If I'm late, you know what? They write me up. There's a thing called a write up. They could write you up, and I gotta wear this tie, and it's a theater, John, a movie theater. I just not, and he laughed, and he said, you can't even handle a regular job in real life. I said, no, I can, man. He would pick on me. So I started to figure out how to make a little money at the theater. Okay. I started, they used to, if you remember the old theaters, when you would get a ticket and they would give you a ticket to go into the theater, and they would rip one in half, put one there and give you the other half. Well, I started figuring out, well, wait a minute. What if I tore this ticket, sold this one, and put that money in the drawer, and then I sold the other ticket that I didn't put in the bag, and I put that money in my pocket. So I was, I figured out a little scam. So if you know what I'm talking about, shame on you out there. And I'm double selling tickets, and I got into a management position. So I'm destroying hot dogs at the end of the day and writing them off, but taking them off the registers if they were returned or ruined. So I think I got me a little thing going on here. I'm making about $200 a week extra. That's a pretty big deal back then. And I would call John, and I said, I still feel bad for the money. I don't know what, but I'm going to send it to you. I'm going to send you some cash. And he was like, what are you doing sending me money for? I said, because I robbed you and it still bothers me. He said, yeah, you feel that way? I said, I feel that way, John. And I would send it, you know. He didn't complain. But in my head, I was kind of paying homage, I guess. Little did I know he was appreciating that fact. And I was being thought of for a different area in life. And I had it with the theater stuff. One day, I get a call from home in Denver, and my sister calls me and she says, "Hey, Anthony, you got to come home." I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "It's Mama. She ain't gonna make it. She asked for you." And I'm like, "Man!" So jump in my Mustang. I call work, said, "I can't be here. You got to get somebody in here, man." I split. I raced about 13 hours nonstop. Get to St. Anthony's Hospital. I run up into the hospital. They're my family, and my uncles are all lined up, and they're all lined up to see my grandmother. And she's calling them in one at a time. And I hadn't seen my grandmother in a while. And usually I kept in touch with her and how you doing and such. Her diabetes got really bad, and her arteries started to harden up, and there wasn't much they could do. So I get to the hospital, my turn to come to talk to her, and she says, "Okay, come on in here, baby." And she hands me a notebook, flips it over, and then hands me a pen and says, "Okay, now just write down what I tell you." And I said, "Okay, Ma, hey, Ma, hello. I haven't seen you for a while. I'm sorry I haven't kept in touch, Ma." She goes, "Just shut up and write, okay?" Okay. So she says, "Okay, number one, go to your grandfather's and water my plants." See, he never waters my plants when I go on vacation. And by the time I get back, they always die. There's something wrong. And she's going down this list of stuff. She said, "Tell your mother she needs to tie her shoes or buy some of them Velcro that she could just flip it over because she never ties her shoes. I'm afraid she's going to fall down and hurt herself." And she's going through all this list of chores, like I'm supposed to go on vacation or so. She was leaving someplace. And then finally she gets down to the last part, and she says, I couldn't afford very much, but there's this store called Kmart. And I went and I put 4 suits on layaway for you and your brothers. And those are the suits I want you to wear when you bury me. And I said, "Okay, Ma, I had it. Enough, man." I threw my, "No more, Ma. You ain't gonna die, okay? You ain't leaving. Where's this Jesus is supposed to help you out, huh? Where's this guy? Jesus, tough guy, where are you, man? You're supposed to take care of my grandma. You pray to this guy all the time." I really just blew up, And she let me throw my tantrum, and I'm throwing things around. And I'm like just mad. And she goes, are you through? And I said, "Yeah, I guess. But Mom, don't talk like this." And she says, "Oh, come here, baby." I got there. She goes, "A little closer. A little closer." And I bend down. Brother, them knuckles came out so hard, they hit me in the forehead. Crack. And then I sat down on the floor, and I'm like, "Whoa, Ma, what was that for?" And she goes, "Don't you ever curse my Lord and Savior again. Don't you curse my daddy. Don't you curse your king. Don't you curse Jesus Christ. Don't you ever do that. I'm going home. Honey, I don't have to hurt anymore. I'm going to run around like a little girl. I'm going to dance. I'm going home." And I didn't quite grasp all of that, and she knew how to talk to me, though. She goes, let me ask you something. Why do we go 55 miles an hour on the highway?" "I don't know, Ma. It's because that's the speed limit. Right? We go 55. She goes, "Yeah." "What happens if we go faster and get caught?" "Oh, yeah, I guess, well, then we do the time. We get in trouble?" She goes, "Yeah, what if we don't?" And I said, "Well, then we had a heck of a good time, huh?" She goes, "Yeah. Baby, if I was a cow in my last life, I don't remember. So this one counts. Promise me you will seek out Jesus. Promise me you'll find the tree of life. Promise me you get out of them gangs and stay away from them people that you're going with. Please promise me." I said, "Okay, Mama." I did it to pacify her. And I said, "Let me ask you something. That verse you gave me, Matthew 5 verse 8. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. I don't know what that means. I don't understand it. And she goes, well, that's your ID badge, baby. That's your identification. When you leave this world and you stand before the man, he's going to know you by your heart. And my little Phillip Anthony has a good heart. So promise me. And I said, sure, I'll do it, Ma. She goes, because guess what? Someday, when my little Phillip, my little Anthony finds Christ and allows him into his life, he's going to tell the whole world what Jesus did for him. You watch me. And I said, okay, Ma. All right. You know, that was 36 years ago. I watched her. They come in to get her for her surgery on December 2nd in the morning. And she had ordered these Hawaiian leis, and she put them on, and she waved at everybody while they took her into surgery. And she never came out of that surgery, man. It was they brought her out. I saw her bed. I was at her feet, and I watched her flatline at 3:23 p.m. December 2nd, 3:23 p.m. I believe it was 36 years ago, and here I am now. I'm like, Mama, I wish you could see me now, but it was that time that my anger for God and any Christian, anybody praying, because I had been to many churches and I've been to many funerals. Saw my best friend gacked out he had almost 60 holes in him from a Mac 20 on a drug deal that went bad. And his mother would go to church, and everybody was preaching and saying what Jesus could do. And I just wasn't there. And then I had anger because he took the best thing in my life, the only peace, the only goodness that I had in my life, he took away from me. And that started and made my decision, which I would later talk to Big John about. I don't know how much time we have left, but that would start my transition and my anger into saying, all right, John, I want to work for you. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. It's always really tough losing a parent, let alone a mother, because it seems like the mothers are the ones that, hold your life together, you
Yeah.
know.
And she was my grandmother, but she was like my mother, she was everybody's mother.
Yeah. Yeah, very sad story. You got a lot of people in the chat saying how tough it is to listen to and how she was a rock, and they're crying, and it's really tough. It's definitely an emotional story, and a real gripping one too. You know, but yeah, we can go on. I know I told you I'd give you an hour, but we could do like an hour and a half. We probably are going to have to do two parts to
Okay.
this because we're not even
I'd
yeah
be
we're
honored
not
to
even to the
come back.
cartel part yet.
Oh no. After this, it kind of blew up. I I developed some anger right there, and I didn't really know how much or how bad. And I did everything she asked me to do. I did it on the list, and then I started to make my way back to Dallas, and I got down to Raton, New Mexico, and was headed to Dumas, Texas. And it was about midnight, a little after 1 o'clock or something, about 1 in the morning. And I remember going to the highway, and I'm in the middle of nowhere. If anybody's familiar with that area, it's kind of just desolate. It's late. It's December. It's cold. I pull my Mustang over and I get out, man, and I start cussing God. I'm like, you mother effer, and I'm just cussing him and hating on him. You took everything, and I was crying and mad. And I said, you send every Christian my way. You send them all, and I'll kill every one of them. I hate you. And I was so full of anger. But funny thing, 15 years later, which we'll get into down the road here, 15 years later, in that exact location where I cursed God, is when the feds hit me, when I was on the run. 15 years later, I got arrested in that same spot. But
Wow.
It was weird how it worked out because I had been all over. But I made my way back to Dallas, and I got fired at the theater when I got back because I found out there's this little group of guys called auditors, They had been going through all the books and stuff that I should have been turning in. And so I got fired, didn't get charged with nothing. But I was going to go do some other type of work out there. I had talked to John, and he called them condolences about my grandmother. And I said, I appreciate that. And he said, well, what are you going to do now with yourself? And I said, John, I want to come work for you, man. And he said, you want to work for me? Yeah. Anthony, what is it I do? Well, you own a restaurant, man. You tell people what to do. I don't know, John, you look nice, you dress nice. I want to do what you do. What is it I do? You can't answer the question. John, I know it's a tough kind of business that you run. Some guys, they do, they collect and they whatever, man. You know what, Anthony, get a job. And he hung up on me. Oh, I was so mad. I had saved up some cash. So I'm in my apartment, and I'm watching Rocky Balboa movies, and I'm doing a lot of push-ups and just thinking, what am I going to do? And it was a few days later, I get a call from John this time. It wasn't me calling him. And he's drinking a little vino, and he says, hey, so you want to do what I do? And I said, yes, sir. I'm done here, man. I just can't make it in this life, man. I just can't make it with these people. Yeah. Anyway, you want to do what I do. Okay. You stay by your phone. You don't leave. You stay right by that phone. Somebody's going to give you a call, and you do everything they tell you to do on that call. You understand me? I said, yeah. So I'm going to work for you. He goes, stay by the phone. And he hung up. And I call him back. And I'm like, he won't answer. And I keep calling. Then he asks, what? And I said, John. He goes, what? And I said, thank you, man. Thank you. And he goes, don't you ever fucking say that again. Don't you ever thank me for this. Stay by the phone. And he hung up. I literally thought he meant stay by the phone. I think he did. But I stayed there one whole day. I didn't sleep. And I'm just waiting for that phone call to come in. And I'm waiting for the call because it was an exciting thing to me. And here comes another day. And then here comes another third day. And I'm like, oh, my gosh, he's making a fool out of me. It's probably like him. That's what he would do. And so I'm like, I'm tired of Rocky movies. I've done every push-up I can do and ate all the food I got. So, all right, I'm leaving. I'll go find something to do. And then that phone call came. There was a guy in the other line, and he says, here's an address. It's in downtown Lower East Dallas. Show up there, and you'll meet somebody. And I did what they said. I went to the address. It was a loading dock. There was a bunch of like lettuce and it was a bunch of vegetables and stuff that were loading. And I thought I was going to be delivering food, but there was a guy waiting for me. And they said, hey, there's a guy upstairs. And I went up to meet this man. And I won't go too much into detail because I really want people to get into the book and really see the documentary. But a long story short, I got my first assignment. I thought I was going to be truck driving, and I met this man, Mr. LaBarba, and he was part of a Dallas family, and they were associated to the Marcellus family in Louisiana and Jack Ruby, which had something to do with the Kennedy thing, but I was going way off course here. But that was the type of people I was about to meet, and I got given an assignment envelope with an address, a number, a figure on it, and I had 24 hours to collect it. Bam, I did it. I did everything they said to do. I had learned a lot from the guys prior to this. I knew what I was doing. I was a good street fighter. I also took a bunch of martial arts practice in there. Later on, I worked with weapons and guns. See, in the organized criminal world, there's so much people don't know. You've got to get a trade, and my trade was concrete. You got to learn how to fight and protect yourself, depending on the type of job you're going to do. And I had more brawn than brains. And then there are guys that are used for their brains, man, and they're the earners. I was a collector. I enforced the rules, and That started my audition, I guess you could say. For a couple years, I was down there till about 19 years old. I had an altercation with a guy from another family. His nephew put the guy in a hospital. Turns out he was a hands-off. He was a relative of a hands-off guy, and I wasn't. I shouldn't have done that. And I was told by the La Barba family, "You need to get out of Dallas. We're kind of done working with you here." I had done so many collections, but I'm getting kicked out for this guy. And they said, "Yeah, you shouldn't have touched this guy." And they blew my car up. It was a 1970 Grande Mustang, a black Mustang, and they lit that on fire. And I got the hint because I stuck around for a while. I said, "Man, let them come get me." I thought I was a tough guy. And I ended up leaving Dallas and coming back to Denver and getting together with John. And then I was introduced to the Small Dome family.
Wow. Yeah, it's a pretty crazy story. It's definitely wild. So basically, you lost the rock in your family, and then from there, you kind of went on, the extra wrong path, and you didn't really have anything holding you back or anything like that, from what it seems like to me.
No, nothing holding me back. I was kind of just running around. I wasn't real close with my family. Everybody kind of went in their separate ways, and parents got divorced. My mother married a very good man, and I respected him. I got I did take a blood oath under Omerta. The Omerta oath. I took my code of silence. I took an induction. The same as you would if you were on the East Coast, and they call it straightened out, a made man. I'm what you call a trusted associate, so I want to get all that real clear. In my area, you were called made. In the families I'm with, you were a made man because you took the oath, and I was vouched for by John Giovanni. However, my father is of Spaniard descent, and the Italian comes from my mother's side. And old school, probably before the 90s, your father had to be specifically of Sicilian descent, and that's called Cosa Nostra, and that is European, that is Italian, and in Italy only. La Cosa Nostra is the American Italian mafia, this thing of ours. And gosh, I don't know how many other guys took the same oath. And I'm not going to go too much into that because that ends up kind of detouring from what we're talking about. But I had an obligation. I put a crew together. It was a small crime family compared to what you hear about. And these were old school guys, Chauncey Smaldone, Flip Flop, Eugene. Eugene had done time with one of the Colombo captains, a guy named Sonny Franzese, back in the day, and that made him friendly family. The Colombo family was friendly to ours, along with the Genovese family. And I earned a corridor. A corridor, I mean, I would work my area from Juarez, Mexico, all the way through Davidson, Michigan. And by me taking my oath and swearing my loyalty to the Italian families, to that life, I represented this family when it came to the drug and gun trade with the cartel. See, the cartel would not do much back in the 90s with any of the Italian mafia. They pretty much ran their own things. And they don't like each other. The Italian mob oppose the cartel. There's no love there, and almost racial and prejudice. But if they think about it, they're all Latin based, so I don't know what they're fighting about. But the Italians bring a sense in the mob life, and I'll go out and say a sense of class structure, their organization that every other gang, street gang, biker gang adopted the hierarchy, the structure of the Italian mob. So that being said, I became a liaison because of my father's descent. The cartel had respected that and they honored that. So I was taking guns and trading for cocaine down in Juarez back in the 90s and introduced most of the five families to that route. And what they did with it, that was up to them. But if there was merchandise going from one section of the country to the other, man, we stole it. If it was insured, I mean, We stole everything from frozen foods, pies, engine blocks, copper, refrigerators, tools, you name it. If it was could be stolen and put on a truck, my job was to see that the merchandise could go from like Utah to Kansas safely. If there were funds, collect those funds. All the homage was paid. Then there was another section of VIGs that you could pick up through the gambling areas all the way up through Michigan. So there's a lot into that life, but you always paid up, and it was a lot of respect there. I had a group of guys that I call brothers, and to this day, there's three of them that are left that just got out of prison, and not going to go into their names, but I talk about them in my book, and all kind of did the same thing, you know. If there's any questions specifically that somebody would like me to answer, please feel free to holler at me, and you're at the show as well, so we can guide through
Yeah,
this.
definitely. Yeah, this is probably a good ending point. I'll have to bring you back on for a part two, and we'll have to discuss what happens after, you know, after you get caught or after a raid or whatever happens, what happens with your case, and you know, we'll have to go from there. We'll do a part two. We'll bring you back on and give people the second half of the story.
You bet. Anytime, anything for you guys, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak in detail, you know, and share that out there. It's kind of an interesting journey, and I've had some really neat things. You can catch me up in the Mob Museum coming up here. I think this next year. I went down, did a photo shoot, and in Gangsters of America down in Hot Springs, Arkansas. I believe that's in March. But I'll definitely stay in touch with you guys and let you know how this is all coming together and film stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was definitely fun and stuff like that. And to get a sponsor, there's actually
You want to do another giveaway?
yeah, we could do one. Yeah, we do a giveaway for the
Whatever one you want, man.
yeah, we'll do the bomber. Let's see here.
And again, thanks everybody for tuning in. I'm seeing all the comments there and stuff. Really, I really appreciate that. And they can
Yeah,
feel
yeah,
free to reach me at from the bullet to the Bible at gmail.com anytime. You
yeah,
think
definitely.
if they could use my testimony out there, if they could, if I can come to your school, you feel like I can be a benefit in an area, please feel free to reach out. We run our own team here.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's a guy in the chat right now messing around, Jimmy Crab Legs. That's the guy I was telling you that has a show on Roku. If
Yeah,
you guys were interested in being a sponsor for his show, um, Jim, you can email me if you'd like.
yeah. He says
And
this guy was never a made guy. Well, in his eyes,
yeah,
maybe not.
he's got a persona where his name is on here is Jimmy Wires.
Yeah.
So he's got like a little online mob genre persona, and it's pretty fun when he plays that. Let's see.
Yeah, the bottom line at the end of the day is if there's some way you can stay out of any of those lives, I don't care what it is, and do something good with your life, and we can help you get there, man. I've been given chances. People, they deserve it if they're still breathing and walking.
Let's see here. So yeah, you just type pound all caps bomber in the chat to join the giveaway, and it's for a variety pack of Bomber energy drinks. Who's the sponsor of this show? See, we got one joining in here. Got a couple. I don't know if it's all connected. We'll get them going, and then we'll end this on. We'll do a part 2 and stuff like that. You could show we could show some of your like court documents and stuff of that nature. Kind of get into what happened with the court case and all that.
You bet.
How much- Oh, we do got some trolls coming in here.
Oh, you got one.
Yeah, Barbara Buffalo won that one.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, definitely. So, if there's anything you'd like to say to the people before we sign off, you can go ahead and do so.
No, I appreciate the opportunity to get out and share my story. And like I said, if you can feel this can impact your life or in a positive way, and you just want to keep in touch, you can reach out to me at fromthebullettothebible@gmail.com, and I'd love to answer any more questions and kind of share with what we're going as we build this journey. And thanks again, man. Thanks very much for having me on the show.
All right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I hope everybody has a good evening. I try to keep my interviews to around an hour. So we'll bring you back on for a part 2 and check out the second half of your story. I appreciate you coming on.
Amen. God bless and Happy New Year to everybody.
Yep, you too. Have a good one.
See ya.
And good night, everybody.
Feel it coming in the air. There's a screams from everywhere. Only thing that's on my mind is who's gonna run this town tonight.
Yeah, I say that we are. This is Rock Nation. Pledge your allegiance.
We gon' run this town.